Hey friends, my name is Laura Adams, and I want to welcome you to another weekly episode of the Money Girl Podcast. I'm a personal finance author who's been hosting the show since 2008. My mission through this podcast and all of my writing and media work is to help you get the knowledge and motivation to prioritize your finances, build wealth, and have more security and less stress. Every show is a mini tutorial that you can listen to while you're, exercising, working around the house, or just chilling out to come away with practical advice for making better money decisions and up-leveling your financial life. I love to listen to podcasts while I'm exercising, so maybe you do too. I would love you to subscribe to the show. That way you'll make sure to get every new episode the moment it comes out. And also think about leaving me a message if you've got a question or a comment. We have a voicemail line that we set up just for you. It's 302-364-0308, and that's open 24/7. And if you don't want me to mention your name, you can just say that on the message. Also, you can email me using my contact page at lauradadams.com or connect through Instagram at lauradadams. And I'm on Twitter at Laura Adams, no D in the middle of that handle. And if you want to read a companion blog post for this or any show, they're always available in the Money Girl section at quickanddirtytips.com. Today's episode is number 722, called 7 Ways to Protect Your Money from Lawsuits. This is not a great topic to think about, but I think it's really important because we work so hard to accumulate our net worth, our savings, our assets. And, in a moment, they could be jeopardized by something terrible happening. So it's a really smart thing to think about as you accumulate wealth. You want to think about how you can protect that wealth. So that's what this show is about. We're just going to talk about some really simple everyday ways that you can protect yourself. And, you probably don't need all 7 of these, but I think if, maybe 1 or 2 of them stand out to you, it can make a big difference in the security that you've got. So we're going to go through 7 ways to protect your money. And the first one that everybody needs to do is purchase liability insurance. So liability insurance, I think, is one of the most critical things you can do for your finances to protect your assets because it is, in a lot of cases, relatively inexpensive. And it's also a part of other types of insurance that you've got to have. So let me tell you what I mean by that. It can be combined with insurance like auto insurance or home or renter's insurance. And if you don't have those policies, you can actually buy a standalone insurance policy. So why do you need it? Well, if someone sues you, liability insurance covers your legal costs up to your policy limits. Here's an example. Let's say you've got $250,000 of liability coverage. Maybe let's say it's on your auto policy, and you're found at fault for $750,000 in legal damages. Maybe you hurt somebody. You've got medical bills that they're suing you for, or even property damage. It could be a variety of things. If this were the case and you were found at fault, but you've only got $250,000 of liability, you would have to come out of pocket for the difference. So if the court says you owe $750,000, but your insurance is saying, well, we're only going to cover $250,000 because that's all you've got. Again, that is on you to come up with the difference. And for a lot of people, that would devastate their financial life. So having enough liability is critical for protecting your financial health now and in the future. If you get involved in a personal or a business lawsuit, it's just a significant financial risk that you could face. So let me go through some of the common types of liability that you may need. And I mentioned one of them, which is the auto liability insurance. So this is required in just about every state if you own a vehicle. However, every state's minimum varies a lot. So if your state has a low liability requirement, you're probably going to need a whole lot more than what they're asking. For instance, in Florida, which is my home state, drivers only have to carry $10,000 of personal injury liability and $10,000 of property damage liability. That's a small amount of protection if you ever got into an accident and hurt somebody or hurt their property. So here's an example. Let's say you have a teenage driver and they get into a car crash and injure a passenger or another driver. You would likely be sued by the injured party or by their insurance company. If the court awarded $50,000 for medical bills, but you had $10,000 of coverage, and like most Florida drivers do, you would be responsible for the remaining $40,000. And if you didn't have that $40,000, the court could garnish your wages or withhold certain federal benefits from you to satisfy the judgment. So this is very serious. So in addition to auto liability, you likely need homeowners or renters liability insurance. So again, this is part of a homeowner's insurance policy or a renter's insurance policy. These are required if you've got a mortgage. A lot of landlords will require you to have a renter's insurance. And just like auto liability, it protects you from a lawsuit, like a visitor getting hurt on the property that you own or you rent. For example, maybe you've got a pet sitter that comes over to take care of your dog, and the dog bites the pet sitter, and then the pet sitter sues you. You would have some protection if you had a homeowner's or a renter's liability policy. If you had $100,000 of coverage and a court awarded the pet sitter $30,000 for medical bills, your insurer would cover it. Another type of coverage that you want to consider if you've got a lot of assets is called an umbrella liability insurance. This gives you protection above the liability limits that you've already got, like on your auto or home or renter's policies. With an umbrella over your existing coverages, you cover additional liability up to that umbrella liability limit. For instance, let's say you've got a handyman working on your roof and they fall off and break their leg. You would probably get sued. If your homeowner's liability coverage was $300,000, but you lost a lawsuit for $500,000, you'd have to pay the $200,000 difference. But if you had $1 million umbrella coverage, it would cover that $200,000 shortfall. So think of it as a real umbrella of coverage that boosts your overall liability and reduces financial risk. Now, the good news is that the cost of umbrella coverage is relatively low. In fact, in a lot of cases, it's lower than if you were to boost up that auto liability or homeowner's liability. In a lot of cases, it's just cheaper to get an umbrella policy. So it could be something like $1 million of coverage for about $350 a year. That's pretty reasonable. So it's a really affordable policy that you should use to protect your net worth as it increases. Another type of liability that you might need is business insurance. So this is obviously going to protect businesses and business owners from something happening. And there are a variety of different types of business insurance. But, you definitely want something that's going to protect you from lawsuits based on the type of work that you do. For instance, a lot of retailers would have liability in case a customer slips and falls in their store and they get sued for medical costs. Independent contractors and freelancers typically need something called errors and omissions insurance, or E&O, for protection against getting sued for mistakes and misstatements. All right, so the first and most important way to protect your money is having enough liability insurance. The second way to protect your money is by investing money in retirement accounts. This is a terrific way to protect your money from lawsuits because employer-sponsored plans, such as 401ks and 403bs, are shielded from creditors under a federal law called the Employee Retirement Income Security Act. That stands for ERISA, E-R-I-S-A. However, be aware that your protection for funds in an individual retirement account, or IRA, varies by state. If you have a traditional or a Roth IRA, Consult with an attorney or a financial advisor to understand how your IRA balances could be at risk if you get sued. So if this is an issue for you, if you're worried about creditors coming after you, having money in a workplace plan is typically a better bet than having funds in an IRA. It's typically going to give you more protection. All right, the third way to protect your money is retitling your assets. So in extreme cases, retitling valuable assets like a home or a rental property so that it's owned by a spouse or a family member could be a wise way to stay protected from lawsuits. But giving up ownership of those assets comes with consequences. For instance, if you and your spouse get divorced, your ex would own those assets in their name. Plus, putting assets in someone else's name means you may owe gift taxes over an annual limit. Right now, that limit is $16,000 per person for 2022. So definitely consult with a tax professional before giving away assets that are valued over that amount. The fourth way to protect your money from lawsuits is setting up a trust. If you've got a lot of valuable assets, setting up a trust can be the best way to protect them from lawsuits. A trust allows you to transfer ownership of assets to a third party known as the trustee, and the trustee manages those assets on behalf of the trust beneficiaries. And there are different types of trusts that are suitable for different needs, but one benefit of an irrevocable trust is that it's not at risk if you get sued. But if you've got a living trust or a revocable trust, it can be at risk in a lawsuit. So if your goal is legal protection, that may not be right for you. Once created, you cannot change or cancel an irrevocable trust. So that's how it gets protection from creditors and lawsuits. But obviously, this is very complex and it can vary, depending on the state where you live. So you want to consult an attorney for advice if you're considering setting up a trust. The fifth way to protect your money from lawsuits is incorporating your business. Incorporating your business, even if you've just got a part-time side hustle, is a fantastic way to protect those assets. It allows your business to be a separate legal entity from you as the owner. So that means your personal assets are protected if your business gets sued. You've got several options for incorporation, including registering as a limited liability company, LLC, or an S corporation or a C corporation, just depending on the type of business you have, your potential liability, and the amount of income you earn. You file the necessary paperwork with your state and pay an annual filing fee to incorporate. Plus, you may also need to create an operating agreement that outlines the ownership and the management of your business and keep certain documentation, such as annual meeting notes, to support the legal document or the legal corporation that you set up. All right, the sixth way to protect your money from lawsuits is separating your personal and business finances. So this is also going to apply if you've got a business. This is just a really good rule of thumb, is to always keep your personal and business finances separate. For instance, you likely need to open a business bank account and pay your expenses, including your own salary, from that account. You can also apply for a business credit card to keep charges separate from your personal purchases. In other words, combining your business and personal funds means that you're opening yourself up for more liability. It means that it's more likely that your personal assets could be at risk in a business lawsuit, even if your venture is incorporated. And the last way to protect your money is to know your state's laws or seek guidance. As I've mentioned, the law varies significantly from state to state. For instance, you may have complete legal protection for your primary home in some states. Some states even allow married couples to title property as tenants by the entirety, exempting it from lawsuits brought against one of the spouses. So, it's wise to really understand what the benefits, the pros and the cons are for doing these types of things where you live. And in a lot of cases, you're going to need help with that. So to sum up, it's wise and, not too challenging to put some of these financial protections in place. That way, if the worst happens and you or someone in your family or an employee gets found at fault in a lawsuit, it won't jeopardize your current or future financial security. So the tips that I've covered here are common ways to safeguard your money and property, but, they're not the only ways. It's not a complete list. So again, if you've got questions about how to reduce risk, speak with a professional. It could be a legal professional, a tax professional, or a financial professional. And before I let you go, take a moment to check out my private Facebook group called Dominate Your Dollars. It's an amazing group of people who are interacting, asking good questions, and you'll see weekly posts from me within that group. All you have to do is search for the group on Facebook. And you can also visit lauradadams.com, where you'll find my contact page and more about me, my books, and online courses. That's all for now. I'll talk to you next week. Until then, here's to living a richer life. Money Girl is a quick and dirty tips podcast. It's audio engineered by Steve Rickyberg with editing by Adam Cecil. Our advertising operations specialist is Morgan Christensen. Our assistant manager is Emily Miller, and our marketing and publicity assistant is Davina Tomlin.